I'm Kiyan.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast that's now in color. Specifically,
Finally.
color audio we've invented. Well, actually, maybe you have synesthesia and all our podcasts have different colors to you. That would be kind of cool, actually.
Is that what that's called?
Yeah.
I never knew what that was called. I always knew what it was, but never what it was called.
Yeah, well, you do now.
So yeah, we started season 7 this week, which obviously is now in color, and now has the third Doctor in it.
And it's called Spearhead from Space, since we didn't actually mention that last week.
Right. Pretty awful title, honestly, and doesn't have too much to do with the serial.
Well, it's
until
not like
the
we
end,
came up
I
with
guess.
a better one.
Well, the working title is Facsimile, which you like better for some reason. I think it's more boring.
More mysterious. Also, I'm guessing the Spearhead from Space refers to the collection of, like, orbs that plummet to the ground in formation. You know, formations are generally called... There's a formation called the Spearhead.
Oh, I thought it just referred to the invading Nestine/Auton force, which I just spoiled.
So the episode opens with...
A new intro.
Yeah, in color.
I wanted to mention that. Yeah, it's essentially the same intro. The song has changed up slightly again.
They just reorganized the parts of the song.
And then they did that weird looping thing at the end of it.
I guess it's to make the intro more distinct from the outro. Because originally you could just tell the outro was just the rest of the intro.
Yeah. But yeah, it's essentially the same thing. The same weird, trippy, kaleidoscope-ish looking stuff, but now it's in color, and since it's the 70s, it's all glowy and stuff.
I don't think that's just a product of it being the 70s. I think that's just a product of the designer being like, cool, I get to work with color now.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, but then
It cuts to the Brigadier. It doesn't open with the Doctor yet. It opens with the
yeah, it
Brigadier
takes like 7
interviewing.
minutes to get to the Doctor again, which I actually thought kind of worked in this serial because season 6 ended on a huge cliffhanger plus the regeneration, so you're like, this is actually a what happened to the Doctor situation rather than when's the Doctor going to show up.
Yeah. So the Brigadier's talking to Elizabeth Shaw, who from now on we'll just call Liz, because that's what she wants to be called.
Yeah.
So.
Pretty obvious she's going to be a recurring character / companion this season, and we should probably mention right off the bat that the companions, the Doctor companion scheme is going to be sort of different because all these serials are set on Earth. So,
Yeah.
I mean, essentially, it's just going to be probably the Brig. We're calling him the Brig now, and Liz, but it's not going to be obviously the usual companions or the people who travel with the Doctor. No, it's going to be more like the Doctor is in their element almost, kind of.
A lot of places define companion as someone who's like traveled in the TARDIS. So, I mean, Brigadier hasn't even been inside the TARDIS yet, but you know, maybe Liz Shaw does at some point, which is what qualifies her as a companion. I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, but I mean, we are counting the Brig as a companion.
Yeah. He's closer to a pseudo companion since he just always hangs out on Earth.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
Anyway, the Brigadier's explaining to Liz that there's been a lot of invasions of Earth recently, and by that he means 2. And one was the Yeti and one was the Cybermen. And so Liz Shaw's like, well, why would they invade us anymore now? Clearly just explaining away the fact that there's going to be tons more invasions now that the Doctor's there. But the Brig is like, well, we've been sending more and more probes into space, so we're drawing attention to ourselves, so everyone's going to invade us now. And she's like, well, I don't believe you.
Convenient explanation.
Well, at least they addressed it. At least they didn't just brush it off like, oh, it's just TV.
I guess.
Even if it was a pretty thin explanation, you know, at least they addressed it.
But when you think about it, they've had tons of species invade Earth in the past and Earth spaceships without explaining
But
it.
this is going to be like condensed into a 1-year period. They're going to get invaded like 3
Yeah,
times.
that's true.
4 times. 5. I don't know.
A little less than 1 year, actually. A little less than 1 year because, or Or no, actually about half a year. Because this is the start of the shorter season format.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting actually to think that we're going to be done with season 7 in like...
A month.
Yeah. Anyway, did we explain that Liz is a scientist from
No.
somewhere?
No.
Well, she is. So meanwhile, somewhere in the woods, these meteorites are falling.
Well, they're not meteorites until they've landed.
Whatever.
Syntax,
Comets,
man.
meteors, whatever.
They're meteors.
Debris.
And then the ones that land are called meteorites.
Dwarf planets. No,
What?
I don't know.
Whoa! That would just probably kill everyone on Earth if it landed here. Just vaporize the atmosphere.
Kind of like the Autons. Except they failed.
They got closer than any other species so far, to be honest. I mean, the Cybermen didn't really kill anyone in their whole escaping.
Well, I know the Icemen. Or the Ice Warriors.
The Ice Warriors
Almost.
got pretty close too, but, you know, the Nestine just killed off a bunch of people, whereas the Ice Warriors didn't.
But yeah, anyway, so this, I guess this poacher dude is like hanging out in the woods and he sees one of the meteorites and he's like, whoa,
So he
that's
takes
kind of
it.
weird.
He just makes off with it.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the TARDIS materializes in the woods and the doctor stumbles out.
Still wearing his frock coat. He also lands face first in the underbrush.
Yep.
And then it cuts to the Brigadier again. And he has a call for him. Well, it cuts to the guy in the hospital who sees the doctor being brought into the hospital. And then he calls the Brigadier and tells him that a guy's been brought into the hospital and he was found next to a police box in the middle of nowhere. So the Brigadier assumes this is the doctor, correctly, but he doesn't know that. And he points out to Liz Shaw that the doctor's back because he told Liz about how the doctor helped UNIT defeat the previous 2 invasions, the Cybermen and the Yeti one. And she doesn't believe him, obviously.
So he stations some guards around the TARDIS because he knows it's super important. Did you notice the jazzy music that was playing during these segments?
Yeah, I did, actually. And I liked it.
Yeah, it doesn't really come up again.
Well, there's a lot more noticeable incidental music throughout the whole thing, I think. I noticed it at least.
I know during some points during the second Doctor's run, they had like sort of theme for the music per a serial specific theme for the music, like different recurring melodies and whatnot. I don't really know too much about music, so I don't know the actual terms. They really need to start doing that again because otherwise it just sounds like random music, like and it kind of is. So yeah, whatever. Also, I noticed that it's just another interesting thing that some of the acoustics in some of the rooms that they were in were pretty bad. Like the characters closer to the camera, you could hear way more than the characters farther away. Yeah, that was pretty bad. So,
the Brigadier goes to meet the Doctor.
Right, and also the Doctor who's seeing the Doctor because he's in the hospital now.
Yeah,
and the Doctor kind of looked like Chorley.
What?
So yeah, Chorley dies, but maybe he was reincarnated as the...
What?
I don't know.
What?
Chorley died, right?
I don't remember. What?
Yeah, Chorley from The Web of Fear.
What?
He did. He kind of did.
Not even. Not even.
It beats the color playing tricks on your vision.
Your eyes? Yeah, maybe. Anyway, so before the Brig arrives, the Doctors discover that the Doctor has 2... Wow, that's going to get really confusing.
What was the doctor's name? The medical doctor's name?
I don't know. Did he have a name? Oh, Dr. Henderson.
Huh.
Anyway, so Dr. Henderson has discovered that the Doctor has 2 hearts, and he's like, wow, this is pretty sketch. So he decides to go call the radiology department about it, and
they tell him that the blood samples he sent in weren't even human.
So now they're both like, what? And the guy vacuuming the floor overhears this and decides
Right,
to
Mullins.
Mullins. Wow.
Really similar to my last name.
Who decides it'll be a good plan to call in the newspapers and tell them about it.
Thanks, Mullins.
And so he does, and now the newspapers are all in the hospital, and the Brig shows up, and he's like, no comment. I have no comment about this. And somehow everyone's found out about the meteorites that have landed.
Yep.
Even though Unit is trying to keep that quiet too. And they're like, does this have anything to do with the meteorites? Does he have one of them? He's like, I cannot say anything about our patient right now. Sorry, let me through.
What if it's a running gag during this season that Unit is super incompetent?
But they're not incompetent. They did defeat three invasions now.
Later, well, they weren't really exactly formed during the Web of Fear, but you
Well,
can
they were
assume.
filmed all... Yeah. They were formed as a result of the Web of Fear.
I assumed it was kind of the Yeti... People who dealt with the Yeti that formed Unit. I mean, that's a pretty good assumption to make.
Yeah.
Just call in people from random sects of the army. I don't know. So yeah, the Brig sees the doctor who is out cold.
And then wakes up.
Yeah.
And recognizes the Brigadier, and he's like, Brigadier, how nice to see you. And he's like, who are you? He's like, oh, they've changed my face that much, haven't they? Can I borrow a mirror?
And that kind of debunks the 6B theory.
Not really. It says they changed him. So they could still change him after he enacts things for them as the CIA.
I guess if you want to stretch it.
I mean, the Season 6B theory never states that the Doctor dies on a mission. So it's entirely possible that as part of his sentencing with the Time Lords, he had to go and enact these suicide missions. Sort of like the final season of the A-Team, where they get captured by the Army, get sent on suicide death missions by the Army, and then the final episode, I don't know how it ends, but that's how the final season goes.
But why would they wait until now to change his appearance?
We don't know how far now is after the previous episode, though, because time travel, it could have been 60 years, it could be like could be a couple months of his trial.
Okay, maybe a better way to phrase my question is why would they send him on a bunch of missions and then change his appearance now?
Because maybe they had missions on other planets that weren't Earth.
I guess, I don't know. It still kind of creates a schism. I guess you can explain it away, but yeah, so
anyway, so he sees his face in the moon, he's like, oh, interesting. And then he's out cold again. The Brig's like, wow. I don't know if this is the Doctor or not, but keep him under guard.
So, meanwhile, there's this pretty sketch report. I don't know if he's exactly posing as a reporter, but he's this sketch guy in the lobby or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And some of the reporters are like, hey, that guy's pretty sketch. and then he kidnaps the Doctor.
Well, in episode 2, at the end of episode 1, he attempts to kidnap the Doctor. Only to fail miserably when the Doctor makes a break for it in the wheelchair they're wheeling him out from. And there's this chase through town where the Doctor's in a wheelchair.
It reminded me of the Dalek Invasion of Earth.
With Barbara pushing, what's his name, through.
Except this was way more humorous. Because it was the Doctor. He was gagged, but he was in a wheelchair.
Yeah, well, he makes it back to the TARDIS only to get shot by the Unit soldiers that are there.
Right, Unit realizes he's escaped, so they have all their soldiers on the lookout for him. Meanwhile, the sketch guys people are also after him. And he's accidentally shot by...
and then he regenerates into the fourth Doctor.
Yeah.
The third Doctor's just a complete write-off.
No, that doesn't happen. Episode 1 ends with the cliffhanger of, oh no, you just shot the Doctor.
And then episode 4.
4?
Yeah, we're just skipping episodes 2 and 3.
What? I wasn't informed of this.
Executive decision. No, okay, episode 2.
Yeah, but you find, right in the beginning of 2, you find out the bullet just grazed his head. So they take him back to the hospital. So I guess that entire scene was completely pointless.
I guess it was to set up the main villain.
Yeah, I guess. he goes from being creepy, weird, silent guy in episode 1 to semi-competent villain in episode 4. I don't know. It's a little strange. But, yeah.
So the Brigadier's found out that he tried to escape, so he wants the Doctor brought to unit headquarters as soon as he's ready to move. And the Doctor keeps wanting his shoes for some weird reason. And the Dr. Henderson's like, well, we may as well give him his shoes. Give him his shoes and the TARDIS key's in there.
Right, so he
he had before he escaped the first time. And now Dr. Henderson has the key. And now Dr. Henderson gives the Brigadier the key. So like, this was in his hand. So the Brigadier takes it back to Unit HQ. And he has the TARDIS. He had the TARDIS moved to Unit HQ now. And he tries to open the TARDIS with the key and it doesn't open.
Which they explain away later in a shoddily constructed plot thread.
Anyway, Liz is like, so you got the wrong key. Haha. It's just a police box.
Yeah, Liz still doesn't believe anything weird is going on.
But
Which I guess she has
later.
no reason to at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be a little suspicious. Meanwhile, What's-His-Face is, has confronted some soldiers in the woods.
Oh, the poacher dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what his name is. Oh, Sam Seeley.
It's conveniently right there. Yeah. So he confronts some of the soldiers who are positioned around the TARDIS, and he's like, so, is there any reward for finding one of those meteorites?
No, that's in episode 3.
That is?
Yeah. Because in episode 2, he just opens the trunk and his wife is like, what you got there? And he's like, nothing. He just hides it in the barn.
Oh, yeah.
Because he doesn't bring up the reward till he learns that the driver who had the other one got killed.
Oh.
Which happens in episode 2, by the way. One of the unit guys is driving another one of the meteorites back to Unit HQ, only for an Auton to appear, which is like this plastic mannequin-like guy who has guns in his hand to show up, and the driver is terrified and drives into a tree and dies. So the first death of the Third Doctor's run is just some random soldier who drives into a tree. It's also not the first, not the last.
Not by a long shot.
Of this serial.
Yeah, but meanwhile, during all of this, there's this doll factory making some dolls in a doll making montage with rock music.
Oh yeah, I felt like
Weirdly
I
out of place.
was watching some like 1970s documentary on doll making all of a sudden.
But yeah, then it cuts to this guy, and I guess they're the executive portion of the company is also situated within the factory, because this guy walks into Ransom, walks into I guess the president's office or whatever. The president's name is
Hibbert.
Hibbert or Hibbert?
Hibbert.
Yeah.
And I thought it was Hibbert, but it's apparently Hibbert with a T and not a D. Oh well. Not that they enunciated enough for that to even be noticeable in the serial. So yeah,
Ransom is pretty pissed because they had signed a business deal for like a new line of dolls previously, and then Ransom had gone to the States to do something or the other, and he came back, found that his entire office had been shut down or closed or sanctioned off, and that the deal is now off. And he's like, well, what the hell, Hibbert? Like, what are you doing? We had a deal. And Hibbert was like, yeah, sorry about that. You're just going to have to leave.
So he does. He's like, Hibbert, you're being pretty creepy. I'm going to leave now. Because Hibbert keeps reaching behind his head and touching his neck for some weird reason, and talking kind of slow, which we explain later. And so then the Doctor escapes. He makes a great escape. There's this big shot who shows up to, I guess, examine the Doctor. He's like a big shot doctor, I suppose. Oh, gosh. Why did you have to hospitals? Why?
Hey, they actually do make a joke of it, like, right now.
Yeah, the Doctor's, like, trying to find some clothes, and he sees a door marked Doctors Only. He's like, okay. He goes in.
So he takes a shower.
Yeah, some guys are coming in. He's like, oh shoot! So he takes a shower to disguise himself, I guess.
Yeah, he turns his face away, and they don't recognize him. And
Conveniently.
you find out he has a tattoo, which it's actually just John Pertwee. He just has a tattoo as his actual
Yeah.
real life self. But
He was in the Navy, so yeah, one of those tattoos, like I was in the Navy type thing. Good for you, man. Giving your service to your country. That's admirable. Even if you don't stand for what they fight for, you can at least admit it's pretty admirable, like joining the Navy and stuff.
well, we should definitely not get into any politic-related things.
Well, yeah,
here.
no, I don't want to get into politics, but like, he put his life on the line, and I think that's admirable. That's all I'm saying. Moving on, they just retcon it later to being into some mark the Time Lords put on him. I don't know when that comes up, but
Isn't that kind of a spoiler?
I don't know,
I
because the
thought it
wiki
was.
mentions it comes up in a prose piece and not in some serial, so
Oh, I don't know. I don't remember where I read it.
so that would make it not a spoiler since it would never come up in the show for us to spoil.
I guess I also think some of the prose is non-canon.
It probably is.
So we'll see if that ever comes up. Actually, but yeah, he steals some clothes.
And quite possibly the most over-the-top outfit so far.
Yeah, it looks almost like a magician's outfit. To be honest, like, you know, the stereotypical
Yeah.
stage magicians.
He has like frills on his shirt.
And when he opens the door later, he definitely looked like a
Magician.
magician. Yeah,
Well, he had a cape on.
yeah.
The cape was really like high quality because it was like black on the outside, but had a red lining on the cape, and his jacket had a red lining. I might add.
It's red on the inside.
Well, I mean, the second Doctor's pockets were bigger on the inside.
Were they? When did that come up?
Never. I'm just
Never.
retconning this since it seemed he
What?
pulled billions of things out of his pockets.
Okay.
I think the 10th Doctor or the 11th Doctor actually mentions his pockets are bigger on the inside. But anyway,
So,
he steals the guy's car now, which a unit soldier was guarding, but he decided to nope out when they learned about something or another about another one of the meteorites. So the Doctor steals the guy's car. You're just like, wow, Doctor.
so he heads over to the lab where they've moved the TARDIS,
Yeah, Unit HQ.
and Liz is there, and he bluffs his way into the lab again. The guard is like, "So, do you have your identification?" And he's like, "I don't need any identification. Just let me in."
No, it was better because the guard didn't even say anything. The Doctor was like, so I assume you're going to want to see my identification. Well, I don't have any. Just tell the Brigadier I want to see him, okay? Go, what are you waiting for? And so he does, for some reason, and the Brigadier's like, well, let him in. He's like, how did he find this place? And the Doctor conveniently walks in at that moment. It's like, you're wondering how I found this place. Well, I have this TARDIS tracker in my watch. Which supports the season 6B theory because he didn't have a watch on. Or he didn't have a watch on when he was sentenced.
They also could have just thrown it in with him when they sent him to
But
Earth.
why? Why would they give him a way to track the TARDIS when they're taking the secret of the TARDIS away from him? Why give him a way to get back to the TARDIS?
Maybe it's unexplained like half the things in this show. But yeah, he gets back and he tries to make another break for
That's
it.
later in episode 3 because he needs Liz Shaw to steal the key from the Brigadier because the Brigadier decides that since he doesn't know if this is the Doctor, he's going to hold the key over the Doctor's head and get him to help with this weird meteorite thing. He basically blackmails the Doctor into helping him by being like, yeah, I'm not going to give you the key unless you help. So the Doctor's like, well, get out of here so me and Dr. Shaw can do our work.
Well,
And
he was probably
yeah.
kind of justified because considering like
yeah, he was. Yeah, no, he was.
Third Doctor, what are you doing? Oh God! Later in this serial,
So anyway, what even happens next? Episode 2 ends somewhere here.
somewhere along the line, episode 2 ends. It doesn't just continue.
Yeah, episode 2 ended on a cliffhanger that didn't involve the Doctor, and it wasn't really that much of a cliffhanger.
Right, Ransom. Yeah, that's episode 2. Ransom is like, something real sketch is going on with that doll factory. So he sneaks back in and decides to go into his former, I guess it was his former office.
Yeah.
And it turns out it's been converted into some sort of production factory thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he sees a bunch of mannequins, like life-sized plastic dolls, around.
Yeah.
He's like, that's pretty weird. And then one of them starts moving.
And he's like, oh no. And the episode ends.
And in episode 3, he gets blown to smithereens.
No.
But not yet.
Wow.
He escapes.
He escapes and he gets sent on to unit somehow. I think he contacts someone else who sends him on to unit, but he gets to unit somehow.
Yeah, I think he contacts the army, and they're like, well, unit can probably handle this. They're not really doing anything right now.
Wow, even though General Scobie had shown up at the lab earlier and seen that they were totally working on that meteorite.
Yeah, well, General Scobie is incompetent. I don't know. Kind of.
Yeah, well, in episode 3, like, this can just go anywhere. General Scobie goes to the plastic factory to have a facsimile of him made for Madame Tussauds. The famous...
Tussauds, you mean?
Tussauds, yeah. The famous wax place that's, for some reason, now dabbling in plastics.
Changing up their medium. Wax is a dying format.
I don't think wax was ever not dead. I think Madame Tussauds is the only place that uses wax now, except a candle factory. Anyway, yeah.
So yeah, Ransom gets an audience with the Brig, and he explains what's going on, and the Brig is like, you might be crazy, but you also might not be.
And while he's talking to the Brig, Liz Shaw steals the key for the Doctor, because the Doctor's like, yeah, I need some equipment from the TARDIS. And then when he gets the key, he goes into the TARDIS and tries to make a break for it. And just
The Brig shows up, too.
as he's escaping, it's like, he's tricked you, Liz. Look, he's escaping now. And you just hear this. Everything just goes wrong, and then
Except it's not actually as intense as that.
it should have been. And the Doctor walks out, and he's like,
Well, this is awkward.
the temptation was too great. And the Brig is like, are you going to try escape again? He's like, well, I can't. They've changed the dematerialization code.
Yeah, which last week I guessed that they would like wipe his memory or something and he wouldn't know how to use the TARDIS, but no, they actually just changed the code or something like that.
Yeah.
So
although there were instances in this serial where the third Doctor mentions he's lost his memory of certain things. Like when the Brigadier asks him to explain like how he's there, he's like, I don't remember.
Yeah, so that's either due to the Time Lords or his regeneration or like both.
Yeah.
Depending on what you think happened between these two serials. 2 seasons, rather.
Who knows? Who knows?
Stop doing that!
So the Doctor's like, well, I guess I have to help you now. I have no choice at this point.
Yeah, so he starts examining one of the... Liz, we probably didn't mention that Liz has been examining one of the meteorites this entire time.
Yeah, but it's broken. It's not like pulsating like the other ones are.
Right. So the Doctor, this is either now or a little later, the Doctor presumes like he asks the Brig if any other meteorites are found, and he's like, well, no, just this broken one. I think this is how he figures out what's going on. But and he's like, well,
and the
that's
one that was being transported in the truck.
And he's like, well, that's weird. If only one of them is broken, so the other ones are probably still intact, but they're nowhere to be found, so someone's made off of them. I think that happens a little later, actually.
And then he listens to Ransom's testimony, so to speak. It's not a testimony, but his explanation of events. And then he decides, well, maybe we should go check out that plastic factory.
Meanwhile, the Autons are rampaging. So in case you hadn't guessed, the mannequins are being used to house or embody an alien species, and a few of them are going wild.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, basically. And
so yeah, one of them's ordered to kill Ransom. So
one of he does, because they've taken Ransom to like a tent, and so they kill Ransom. Total destruction.
Right.
Which apparently just involves wiping him from existence.
Yeah, I guess. Meanwhile, the poacher dude, Sam Seeley,
learned from his wife that the dude carrying the other orb, the driver who already died, has died. So Sam's like, oh, So he goes to unit and asks if there's a reward for bringing in one of the meteorites. And they're like, so you know where one is? And he's like, I never said that.
It's true, he didn't.
Yeah, well, eventually he just gives himself away by mentioning that he knows where one is, like offhandedly. And they're like, so you do know where there is one? And he's like,
Meanwhile, Auton shows up because they're tracking the orbs, and Sam Seeley has one in the trunk in his shed. So one shows up at his house, and his wife is like, oh God, what are you doing? So she goes into the shed, pulls out a gun, tries to kill the Auton. I thought it was pretty hilarious that she just pulls out this rifle out of...
It's a shotgun.
Shotgun, whatever, same thing.
Not even.
I mentioned last week that I didn't know anything about guns, and it's true. Or 2 weeks ago, or whenever that was. So she tries killing the Auton, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, the reason the Auton's there is because she took the orb out of the trunk, and apparently the trunk was like muffling its signal or something.
Crappy signal. Fucking trunk blocks it out.
So yeah, the doctor and unit convenient show up.
Yeah, the Auton knocks her out. I thought she died, but apparently not.
Yeah, no, the Brig mentions that she should be taken to a hospital. She's just unconscious when they show up. And they start gunning down the Auton, and then, what's his name? Hibbert is like, withdraw. That is Hibbert, right? No, that's Channing, who's like, withdraw.
Yeah, Channing. Yeah, Channing is the sketch guy from way back when. Turns out he's controlling everything behind the scenes, and Hibbert is just his puppet.
His actual puppet. He's controlling his brain, you find out later.
Yeah, and they're also using puppets in the form of the Autons.
Why would they control Hibbert's brain when they could have just made a plastic copy of him? Like they did with Scobie. Anyway, so they take the orb back to Unit
I guess
HQ.
They needed him in on it to make the plastic forms, so...
I guess.
Because he was the one in charge of the doll factory or whatever.
So they take the orb back, and then the doctor mentions they should probably just assault the plastics factory, since it's clear now that they've seen an Auton that that's where they're coming from. So the Brig calls up General Scobie to get permission, and Scobie's like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And then right at the end of episode 3, the plastic facsimile of Scobie knocks on his door, and he's like, no.
Dun dun.
And then episode 4, the plastic General Scobie calls the Brig and is like, never mind, I changed my mind. Brig's like, darn.
Shoot. No. So the doctor and Liz decide to go check out Madame Tussauds.
Right.
I don't know why they came to that conclusion, actually.
Oh, they wanted to see the facsimile of General Scobie, I guess. Because the Brig mentioned...
why they came to that conclusion, actually.
The Brig mentioned that they'd been making facsimiles of figures, and they made one for General Scobie, and the doctor's like, interesting, maybe we should go check it out, because I guess the doctor thinks there'll be a clue there. Which
there is. Yeah, he's right, so... No, there's just not. It's just a useless filler plot thread that they threw in. No, but they go to the museum, and I don't know, did you notice that as they were, like, in the first shot you see of the museum shows a Kennedy model. And I was like, is that a throwback to episode 1?
Probably not. Because there was
not.
like a George Washington model too, and I just assumed they'd been doing world leaders in that section.
But they specifically had Kennedy like front and center. I was like,
but they also had like some random prime minister too.
Yeah,
right next to him.
Yeah, but Kennedy was like right there. He was like right there.
It's not probably not a throwback, to be honest.
And I mean, it would be kind of a twisted throwback to like his death.
Yeah.
10 years or
Be really,
8 years
really
earlier
weird.
or whatever. But who knows? Who knows?
So the
See how annoying it is?
Not really, actually. I don't know what's the problem. So the doctor notices that the General Scobie facsimile, quote unquote, his watch is ticking still. He's like, why would anyone go through the trouble to wind up his watch?
And it's exactly the correct time too. So
I was like, well, we'll just hide out till they shut down.
Yeah, so they stake out the museum. And sure enough, Channing and God, what's his name? Hibbert.
Hibbert, yeah.
Show up.
And
they're like,
I guess they're investigating to make sure all the facsimiles are ready to go. Because Channing then takes a break outside, and then the doctor talks to Hibbert and is like, he's controlling your mind. Don't let him. And then he hides again, and Hibbert doesn't mention the doctor to Channing. And so they leave, and they decided they need to accelerate the plan and launch all the Autons tomorrow, the next day.
Did they actually say they were accelerating the plan? I thought that was the plan all along.
Well, they said we needed to launch them now. I don't know if that implies that they're accelerating it, but I assumed they were.
Maybe.
Because they just retrieved the... Turns out the orb that Sam Seeley had found was the main orb they needed that controlled all of the aliens, the Nestine. So they sent in facsimile General Scobie to steal the orb. Steal by just being like, all right, I'm commanding you to give me this orb. And the guy's like, well, I guess I have no choice. Because he threatens to court-martial him with mutiny. So he's like, well, I guess you leave me no choice.
So the doctor proceeds to investigate the orb further, and he finds out that it's housing some sort of non-material thing. I don't know how to explain it.
It's transmitting some sort of signal. So he's like, well, if we can build something that emulates the signal, we can destroy the Autons. So they do that.
So they create one of the things from Ghostbusters, and it kind of looked like one.
Sort of.
Except it didn't have the thing wasn't a backpack.
I don't
you
think
had to lug it
Ghostbusters
around.
has come out yet.
Clearly, Ghostbusters came out in the 80s.
Yeah.
The 1880s. No, that didn't happen.
That'd be a weird version of Ghostbusters. So, as they're assaulting the plastics factory, because the Briggers just decided to go ahead with it.
Well, smartly, I mean, they averted the destruction of the human race.
Scobie shows up, or facsimile Scobie shows up, because the doctors realize this Scobie in the Madame Tussauds is the actual Scobie.
Yeah.
So he's like, well, I can prove this is just a facsimile. Liz, plug in. He actually says plug in.
He does? I didn't notice that specific phrase.
And so he kills the facsimile Scobie.
And the Brig's like, you killed him! And he's like...
Well, he wasn't really alive to begin with.
We're still counting him, though.
Yeah, we counted the Yeti, which I guess weren't technically alive either, so...
Yeah.
And the Cybermen, and the Daleks.
Yeah, and this is probably just the Doctor justifying his committing of
mass
murder.
Genocide?
Again! Well, they come back, so...
Yeah, twice. At least once in the classic series and once in the reboots. So.
Yeah, I know when they come back in the classic series. Not that it's much.
Well, I mean, it's blatantly obvious when you title the serial.
Well, I mean, I know what season they come back in.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, so do I.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, it doesn't matter because when you title the serial "Terror of the Autons,"
yeah, I just didn't know if you knew when they came back. So I was like, maybe I shouldn't spoil that.
No, I do.
But yeah, so they come back in they'll be back in a few weeks and a few years. So
yeah.
They actually get way more interesting, right at the end. So
which we're about to get to because they get inside and
the plastic factory. Meanwhile, some unit soldiers are confronting some Autons outside, and there's some murders that take place. Well, killings rather, not.
Yeah,
really
well,
murders.
Hibbert ends up dying. Right, Hibbert dies, right?
Well, yeah, but not before going against Channing and trying to destroy the machine that's housing the Nestine consciousness, which is what's controlling the Autons. He assaults that with a broomstick or a pipe or something.
Yeah.
Pretty uselessly.
Well, he smashes one of the controls, I guess.
and bursts into flame, and then Channing kills him.
Yeah, he dies. Rest in peace, Hibbert. And then the doctor finally shows up, kills some Autons, along the way. Just one of them. He kills more later.
Yeah.
He gets there, and he's talking with Channing.
Yeah, and Channing reveals that he's part of an alien race called the Nestenes, which has been conquering worlds for millions of years.
Mm-hmm.
And now they've moved on to Earth.
He's like, you can't stop us. We've already begun. And there's just all this footage of the Autons running through England, killing people.
Yep.
Just, wow.
Indiscriminately shooting.
They kill like 6 people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the doctor, there's this struggle as the machine stops working that he's built with Liz, and then Liz fixes it, and then he kills the Nestine, and he kills, at least on screen, like 10 Autons, plus the Nestine, plus Channing, who dies.
Yeah, the Nestine actually breaks free of its container thing. And it has like a long tentacle or something like that. Tries to choke the doctor, but he kills it. So yeah.
He just commits genocide again. Just kills off all the Autons.
Yep. He's already, I think we had 8 or 9 deaths attributed to him already on the kill count.
That might have already put him up there with the second Doctor for on-screen kills. I mean, the second Doctor's got, like, the off-screen, killed the entire Cybermen race, like, a couple times.
Yeah. He might have already surpassed First Doctor.
Yeah, the First Doctor just killed, like, 2 people.
Yeah.
We put Sarah Kingdom in his kill count, because I guess even though Sarah Kingdom stayed behind of her own accord, it was at the Doctor's hand that she died.
And the Robot Doctor.
Yeah.
I don't know why I remember the Robot Doctor, but...
So anyway, at the end of the serial, the Doctor decides to discuss terms with the Brigadier, even though he's actually not in a position to negotiate since he can't leave.
Yeah.
But he mentions he doesn't want money because he has no use for this stuff. He just wants a lab to try fix the TARDIS. And then he wants a car like the one that he stole from the hospital because the Brigadier mentions it needs to go back to its former owner. And then he also mentions that he stole the clothes. I'm not sure if they're going to let him keep the clothes or if they're going to find more clothes for him, but...
I think they let him keep them.
I think he's going to be the start of when costume variations appear, because for his whole run, he has the same basic build, which is like the smoking coat and the frilly shirt, but the coat changes colors over the seasons.
First Doctor had like hat changes and some costume changes slightly.
Not as big as like whole color changes.
Yeah, well, you can't really do color when it's black and white, but Second Doctor didn't have any, I think.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there wasn't even... Yeah, I'm pretty sure there actually wasn't any costume variation with the Second Doctor.
There'll be one.
With Jamie, there kind of was.
I assume there'll be one. Because I assumed his shirt was white, but looking at promo pics for the 3 Doctors, while I was looking for pictures of the 3rd Doctor to build the site, he has a blue shirt and a blue bow tie in the 3 Doctors. So it's the same.
That's weird.
It's whether or not it was blue before, I don't know, because it was in black and white. I just always assumed it was white.
There's some color pictures of Second Doctor screenshots. I don't know if those were colored later or if they were just color pictures taken on set, but in those pictures I do remember seeing him wearing a white shirt.
Yeah, well, it's blue in either the 3 Doctors or the 5 Doctors. One of them, he wears a blue shirt with a blue bow tie.
Huh.
So some vague variation there.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And then he ends it with the great line, like, he's talking about the car, and he's like, can we go pick it out now? And the Brigadier's like, no, Doctor, no. And then it ends.
Well, no, the Brig says, Doctor, I never actually learned your name.
Oh, yeah.
And then the Doctor's like, well, call me Smith. John Smith. No, I don't know if he says it like that.
Well, he says Smith, Dr. John Smith.
Yeah.
He does sort of say it like that. Bring back the John Smith alias.
It's not like it hadn't appeared for a long time.
It appeared in The Wheel in Space, and then it appeared again in... Wait, it appeared again.
Didn't he say it in the War Games at least once?
Yeah,
like during the beginning? Yeah.
He said it somewhere else too, but I don't remember where. Oh well.
Yeah, I don't remember. But yeah, that's the start to the Third Doctor. He had some interesting characterization in this serial. He spent kind of a lot of it like knocked out or just trying to escape. So I guess that's part of his character. But I also felt like they could have done more introducing the Third Doctor.
Well, we said the same thing about the Second Doctor. They just haven't been very good at introducing new Doctors. Because like for the whole Second Doctor, for the first 3 episodes, he was just mute and didn't say anything.
Yeah, and that honestly didn't really play into his character looking back over his 3 seasons. I mean, this serial also kind of had pacing issues too. Like the first 2 episodes were super slow, and I felt the second 2, second, God, that's strange phrasing, but the episodes 3 and 4 I felt were just too fast. Episode 4 in particular I felt was too fast. Because episode 4 had the thing of Tussauds and the assault on the factory.
I feel like the serial could have been a lot better if it wasn't the introduction to the Doctor serial. Like the whole trying to escape thing and the key and the whole hospital thing. This could have been like way better if it wasn't like an introduction to the Doctor episode, because it did a really poor job of introducing the Doctor. Because all we kind of got out of it was he just wants to escape and ditch everyone.
Yeah, I mean that's his character so far, essentially. Way different than the first and second Doctor, so at least they're differentiating that.
It probably will change like next serial. Like the second Doctor, who just didn't speak for basically his entire first serial until they reactivated the dogs. It's like, what are you doing?
Well, like usual, it depends on the writer. I mean,
well, this is by the writer who wrote the Crotons and the Space Pirates. Well, so far.
Well, I mean, as we've seen in the past, the characterization of the characters often depends on the writer. Like, sorry, Ian, you're getting kicked off the TARDIS. But yeah, honestly, I kind of felt that this serial could have been a better story if it wasn't a Doctor Who serial. Like, imagine if this was a standalone thing and Ransom was the main character. I think that almost would have worked better.
Well, Ransom got killed in episode 3.
Well, obviously you'd have to change that and change
You'd have to change the entire plot of the serial.
Not really.
Well, are you still going to include Unit? Because then Ransom can't be the main character if you're going to include Unit. But you can't have Ransom fighting the Autons alone, so by transitive property, you have to include Unit.
Well, it's not like... I don't think you see what I'm saying. Like, if this was a standalone thing, obviously it wouldn't have connections to Doctor Who.
Right, but you can't have Ransom... The way Ransom's character was written in this serial, like the way the Autons were written, people who saw the Autons were terrified, and that's why basically Ransom was like basically useless after seeing the Auton in the factory, and that's why the driver crashed when he was in the car, is because when you see the Autons, you're terrified. And that was part of the villain. Which is why it would be next to impossible to have Ransom fight the...
Well, what about the Doctor? And well, I guess you could explain the Doctor. What about Liz?
Well, they were shooting they killed the Autons. Like, Liz knew they could kill them, but before, like, when the driver died, and when Ransom saw the Autons, they were going to be killed by the Auton. Like, Ransom was terrified because the Auton pulled a gun on Ransom.
I don't think that's exactly a part of their character. I think it just so happened that everyone who saw the Autons freaked out.
Well, I assumed it was part of their character because they specifically mentioned when they were bringing in Ransom that he was terrified like the driver was before he died.
Maybe it's just some sort of human thing. I don't know. I still felt this could have been better as not a Doctor Who serial, like several serials in the past, like the Space Pirates. Not that this was as bad as the Space Pirates. It was just bland, in my opinion. Maybe coming off the War Games is... I don't know.
It had a big act to follow. If this had come later in the Third Doctor's run, I think we would look upon it more favorably. To be honest.
Well, it could have been shorter if it had come later, because they wouldn't have had to... The whole Doctor wanting to escape thing is kind of a big part of it.
Yeah, well, they could have taken all that and the hospital out, and they could have expanded the action sequences from 3 and 4 out over the 4 episodes.
They could have...
instead of cramming it into 2.
Yeah, they could have explained the... not explained, but they could have fleshed out the Auton/Nestines more. I don't know if it's just one Nestine or if it's the Nestines or anything.
Who knows? You'll find out eventually.
Unless they decide not to flesh them out anymore next time they appear. And it's just terrible. I don't know, it might be like the Ice Warriors where their second appearance is better.
The Dalek's second appearance was better.
Daleks got progressively better.
Yeah. Most villains get progressively better.
Cybermen were a mixed bag, I felt. Kind of had a...
No. The moon base was better than the 10th planet. In character development-wise. Serial-wise, maybe not, but character development-wise it was. It developed the Cybermen's character more than the 10th planet did.
Still wasn't as enjoyable.
Yeah, well, I'm not talking about serial goodness-wise, I'm talking about character development-wise. So, like, the moon base was better than the 10th planet character development-wise, and Tomb of the Cybermen was better than that, and then the invasion, where they were like...
Yeah, well, no one's going to argue that the invasion wasn't the best Cyberman serial so far. What other villains?
Yeah.
What other recurring villains are there?
Well, there's the Daleks, the Cybermen, the Ice Warriors.
There has to be something else. We have to be missing something here.
The Autons, eventually.
Okay. The Yeti.
The Yeti.
I guess. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I guess it's pretty much an upward trend. Cybermen is, I guess, an upward trend.
They could just throw out the upward trend, I guess, if they wanted to.
With the Autons.
I don't know why they would, but...
So, yeah, this is a kind of a weird start to the Third Doctor.
They've just had generally weird starts to the Doctor. I mean, I know I've mentioned that twice now already, but, I mean, An Unearthly Child was just weird. And the Doctor was completely different in Unearthly Child than the rest of them, because he just wanted to straight up kill a guy in Unearthly Child to escape. And then, like, after
essentially, not like...
Well, he picked up the rock and he was going to kill him, and Ian's like, what are you doing, Doctor?
Oh, then.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I guess.
And then, you know, the second Doctor just didn't speak for half his first serial, and now the third Doctor tries to escape.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess it depends on the writer, essentially.
Like I said, I think they just have a trend of, like, having poor introduction serials for the Doctors so far.
Yeah.
I mean, not necessarily bad, but just, like, character development-wise, they're poor.
It sets them up, if first and second Doctors' first serials or anything to go by, it usually sets them up in such a way that you think their character is something else than what it actually turns out to be.
Right. And I guess the third Doctor's character development, at least until he gets unexiled, whether that'll be in the third Doctor's run or not, will be, I guess, coming to terms with the fact that he's stuck on Earth for a while, which is, like, gonna be pretty major for the Doctor to overcome because, you know, the Doctor stole the TARDIS because he was bored and he wanted to go adventuring, and now he's been tied down to one planet again. So I guess it's going to be him coming to terms with that, I think. Which I guess is what the whole try to escape in the beginning was. Because I think maybe he just panicked and didn't want to believe it was true. I guess that's me just assigning a motivation to something that may not have had a motivation.
We'll see. But yeah, on the use of color here, well, it's color. I mean, well, there's not really much else to say.
I don't know what you expected.
Honestly, during the first episode, or the first half of the first episode, essentially, it was like, what is this? This isn't Doctor Who.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe you didn't feel that way since you've already seen color episodes from the reboot, obviously, so...
It's just part of the evolution of the show.
It just felt weird to me.
It felt kind of weird when Doctor Who suddenly switched to HD in the 11th Doctor's run. You're like, whoa, it's HD! But then you get over it, like, halfway through the first episode.
It didn't switch to HD until, like, 2011?
Yeah.
Huh.
Like, for the 9th and 10th Doctors, it was all standard def.
That's really weird.
Well, I mean, that was 2005 through 2010, it was standard def, and then when Stephen Moffat took over, it went to HD.
Okay, yeah, 2005 I can understand, but, like, I don't know. I feel like the switch would have come earlier.
You have to keep in mind that the BBC is publicly funded, so they're still working on a pretty low budget. So, and high def cameras cost a lot. So,
but yeah,
that wraps up the Spearhead in space. I guess Spearhead from space. Wow, that's confusing. Email us.
Strange title, yeah.
at thedoctor@decorative.com. Questions, comments, concerns, fan theories about the Third Doctor and why he tries to escape at the beginning. I don't know. Fan fiction set in the middle of this serial. Check us out on iTunes at Trust Your Doctor. Check us out at YouTube at Trust Your Doctor. Video version of last week's episode is up on there, so if you want to see us make random hand motions, then watch that.
Yeah, check us out on Facebook, also at Trust Your Doctor. Like the page. And next week we continue on with season 7 and the second serial of the Third Doctor in Doctor Who and the Silurians. Possibly one of the first serials to actually have Doctor Who in the title. I'm not sure about that. But yeah, until then, the end.